It's the fewest times I've ever said good evening and welcome to QI, where tonight we'll be journeying to destinations beginning with J. And joining me are the jet-skiing Sandy Toksvig, the jet-setting Susan Kalman, the jet-engined Bill Bailey, and still being probed by Gatwick security, Alan Davis. Now let's hear your buzzers. And Sandy goes. Susan goes. Bill goes. And Alan goes. Try that again. It's never going to work, is it?
I did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's have an easy one to start with. Strictly speaking, where does the phrase chariots of fire come from?
It's a film.
Where did it originate?
It's something to do with this.
Where does the phrase originate? It's a quotation.
It's a quotation.
From what?
Shakespeare. Must be Shakespeare.
No.
And, those chariots of
Well,
fire.
it's Jerusalem, the hymn Jerusalem.
And,
You fell finally into our trap.
Finally! It took a while, sorry, it's the
Slightly
first question.
embarrassing how long it took you to get the wrong answer. Yes, I did start by saying strictly speaking. Strictly speaking, it comes from a poem by William Blake called...
Chariots of Fire.
No.
No.
I'm ashamed of you. You must know the first line of...
I must, but I can't be asked to tell you.
That's fair.
Fair.
And
did
Those feet in ancient times.
Thank you. Finally we got
Oh,
that.
I know that.
Yes. That's the name of the poem from which the line Chariots of Fire comes. The tune is called Jerusalem, and it's referred mistakenly as a hymn.
Thank you for starting in my key. Come on, England's
Come on!
Bring, oh, clouds unfold. Yes, really what I'm after is, what does it mean?
What?
And whose feet? And did those feet in ancient times appear on England's mountains green? Whose feet?
Jesus, surely.
Right. Yeah. So what is the story of Jesus coming to England?
Is there a film about it?
Yes.
Yeah. And then
Not to my knowledge.
Well, then I'm in
The
trouble.
holy...
As they say, this is what people say now when they don't know the answer. They say, I'm out of my comfort zone.
Jesus.
You have been
Modern
the
euphemism.
equivalent of sitting on spikes for the last 10 years, Alan.
Yeah.
Yet to discover your
comfort
comfort zone. OK, listen, there is a legend that Jesus came to England.
Yes.
And did those feet, i.e. those feet, his feet, in ancient times.
Yes.
And he was said to have gone to a particular place.
Was it
The
Glastonbury?
audience know... Ah, thank you.
Glastonbury.
Glastonbury.
Yes.
Glastonbury tour. And he went with his uncle. What was his uncle's name?
Bob.
Uncle Bob Christ.
Bob is your
Surely, they were more informal in those times, surely.
Yeah.
Bob Christ.
His uncle's name was the same as his father's name.
Joseph.
Joseph, and he was named after a place.
Is it like working with very slow children?
Thank you. Say it again so the camera can get it clearly.
Right. OK.
This is a new thing we're
hang on
doing.
a second. I was composing my face.
Joseph of Arimathea.
No, I said it. I said it. Joseph of Arimathea.
I'm going to throw cold water at you both in a minute.
Joseph of Arimathea.
Now,
Joseph of Arimathea.
It was the first ever Glastonbury festival, if you will.
It was,
that
yes.
Jesus supposedly came with his uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, who is mentioned in the Gospels.
Right.
Although, it has to be said, Arimathea is only mentioned once, and that is in relation to the place Joseph came from. No one knows where it is, where it was, where it could have been. Anyway.
Could have been a falafel tent. Jesus was effectively the first act then.
He was the first act
on
ever
at
to appear
Glastonbury.
at Glastonbury.
Was he a juggler? Did he have bongos?
Yeah.
Was
I
he
bet he
doing
did,
the
yeah.
Diablo thing?
So he's
he wouldn't do the
tapping on
Diablo.
it.
He did holistic balancing.
3 rooms
Yeah.
of banging scripture.
All right, OK. So there was a myth
Yes.
that
Yeah.
Jesus and Joseph of Arimathea came... Supposedly, Joseph of Arimathea was after tin. And he came with Jesus, and he went to Glastonbury tour, and there's a tree.
Isn't there? The Glastonbury tree.
So both the Glastonbury
Did Mary
supposedly
come?
was planted. It was the... Sorry?
Mary, the mother. I just wondered if Mum came as well.
I don't think she did.
Boys'
Jesus.
weekend.
We don't... Boys' weekend.
Yeah.
That's right. But I will give you 20 points each if you can mention the 2 other places that the myth says they went to. Glastonbury is one,
Yeah.
but they were said to have gone to 2 other places.
Wait, I know this.
Torquay.
Because there's a group called the Aetherius Society.
Right.
And they
Oh,
believe...
they're your neighbours, aren't
They
they?
are my neighbours in Devon, and they believe that Christ appeared to them on the top of this hill. And the founder of the Aetherius Society said he was doing the washing up in his flat, and he heard a voice said, "You have been chosen as the planetary representative of Earth." So immediately he went, "Oh, right, better do that then." And,
So he left the drying up.
the drying up to
and the
someone
pushing
else.
away.
Can I just ask how much Bill knows about washing up? Because you do it like you're typing. You did that for
Yeah.
washing up.
that's how you do it.
Yes, yeah.
You just a little gentle caress of each
Dab
thing,
it.
and then it's
And
done.
that to get rid of the
Yeah.
plates.
He eats his dinner off old keyboards.
That's
my life.
Anyway, the places were, in fact,
Devon?
Penzance was one, and the other was Falmouth. And I'm sure he had a lovely time.
A pasty. Did he have a pasty?
He would have had a pasty. Now, what can you tell me, as we were on the subject of Jerusalem, about the Jerusalem artichoke?
Well, it isn't.
It isn't what?
From Jerusalem.
It's not from Jerusalem, it's the right. That's absolutely correct. What else can you tell me? You said it's not from Jerusalem, isn't
Not
it?
an artichoke,
And
is it?
it's not an artichoke. Do you know why?
It's just a lie. The whole thing's a lie. It's really annoying.
exactly.
Jerusalem artichoke. Not from Jerusalem, not an artichoke. You don't
Do you
know where you
how
are.
the word Jerusalem is a corruption of what it actually is?
We used to grow them
dear
in
Lord.
America. We used to grow, when I grew up in New York, we used to grow them, and they look like
Well,
sunflowers.
Do you know, oddly enough, you say America, it is the only endemic, original, natural vegetable from North America.
Is that right?
There is none other. Potatoes come from Central and Southern America, as do tomatoes and chilies. There are some wild rices that come from Canada and North America, but that is the only... Isn't that bizarre? That whole landmass.
Because you think of squashes and all those other things,
Yes,
but
but they're not.
So if it looks like a sunflower and you say it's...
Now,
did you
say sunflower in Italian.
Jerusalem.
Girasole. Girasole.
Gira, turn,
To the
as
sun.
in gyroscope, to the sun.
Girasole.
So, girasole. And girasole became Jerusalem.
Oh, yes, it's the same thing.
So we call it a sun because they turned to sun. And the Greek, I'd be very impressed if you know what's Greek for sun.
If I knew what it was, you'd be more than impressed.
Sun. But you know what the Greek for sun is?
Helios.
Helios. Okay, so helio is sun. Turn.
Good work.
Turn.
Heliotrope.
Heliotrope.
Heliotrope is the right answer we got there. Girasole and heliotrope, and they all mean the same thing because it was noted that the members of the sunflower family following the course of the sun is the
That's
sun.
right. A lot of lizards are heliotropic as well.
Indeed, they are. Absolutely right. Because they're cold-blooded and they need the sun to warm them.
Katie Price is heliotropic.
She is.
She is, yeah.
I think Harrow Road's... I think Harrow Road sun parlour tropic is not quite the same.
I met her once. We were on the same breakfast television programme, and I said, "What are you here to talk about?" She said, "I've just published my autobiography." And I said, "Oh, well done." She said, "Yes, I'm looking forward to reading it."
But it's an odd thing about Jerusalem. For some reason, it seems to attract things that really just don't seem to be particularly connected. This Jerusalem cherry is not a cherry. It's actually a poisonous nightshade.
Wow.
The Jerusalem cricket is not a cricket. It's another kind of insect.
Bowls.
Yeah. Jerusalem sage is not a proper sage. None of them is from Jerusalem.
So essentially, you can put Jerusalem next to anything that isn't actually what it is, and then it just becomes fact.
Exactly.
So,
I'm wearing Jerusalem glasses.
and I'm a Jerusalem model.
Yes. Mountain also has that. We've got mountain lions. The mountain cow is, in fact, a...
Katie Price.
What a pity. It's actually a tapir, one of those long-nosed
Oh, yes,
South American...
yes, the tapir.
Anyway, we're ready to move on. So, why might my pockets smell of fish? They've done that thing where they take my body and they put on it the head of someone who looks a bit... I hate when they do that.
God, that's like a dream I had last night.
Stop it.
It's not like a dream I've ever had.
Obviously, if you're a fisherman, but if you were a person of high rank in society, particular society, your pockets might smell of fish.
Oh.
The Fishmongers Society.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Aside from the obvious professional reasons why you might smell them, it's a society in which it was considered polite not to eat, but to pocket the fish at a banquet.
Is it Japanese? Because
yes!
Oh, fish, they love fish.
Japanese, yes, exactly right. Medieval Japanese society, at weddings and banquets and other such things, it was right to drink the drink you were given, but that you should take the fish, bring it up to your mouth, and then tuck it away into your pocket. I know it seems very odd. It's just a social...
I've done that with sausage rolls for the dogs later.
We've all done it with certain things, I agree. But it is an interesting thing, and they still have a tradition in Japan, when a baby is 100 days old, is to take food, sea bream and beans and soya and rice, and wave it in front of the baby's face, but not let the baby eat it.
So there's people dangling fish in front of babies. This is... Right, OK, on what, on a fishing line?
No. So from the food cupboard or the fridge, which in Japan would be filled with all kinds of different fish, as you can imagine.
I see. Sashimi.
Sashimi and sushi and all kinds of other such things.
Right.
Yeah, in fact, while on the subject of sashimi, what is the difference in sushi and sashimi?
Sashimi is raw fish, and sushi is rice and
yes, it's rolled in rice.
Kind of thing.
And the particular thing about sashimi is not just that it's raw fish, but that it's sliced as an angle.
It's cutting.
There's huge knife skills are incredibly important in Japanese cuisine. And this particularly used to be true in the medieval period. And in carp, for example, there were at least 47 different ways of cutting carp, which represented different aspects of human life or activity. For example, there was departing for battle carp. So soldiers would have carp carved in a certain way before they went to battle.
Well, they weren't told they were going to battle. The carp was the giveaway.
There was celebratory carp. There was taking a bride carp. Flower viewing carp.
No.
Oh.
Warning carp. Look out, carp.
Moon viewing carp. And so it was a very important part, obviously, of Japanese life, was the way they prepared fish. It's a wonderful art, obviously, and is a very popular cuisine now around the world. I have an amusing joke that I always say when I'm in a Japanese restaurant. Bring me a various selection of things to drink, waiter, and don't get all sake.
Oh, yes.
But what actually is sake? What is sake?
Rice
wine.
Rice wine, you said, Alan.
Yes, rice wine.
Alan came in first with rice wine. It is not rice wine. It is, no.
Is it from Jerusalem?
The actual word sake simply means alcoholic drink, but the sake we think of as sake is in fact a kind of beer. The word they use for the drink we call sake is nihonshu, which means Japanese liquor. Nihon, as in Nippon.
Nihon.
Anyway, originally people would just chew rice and spit into a large container, and the enzymes from the spittle would cause the breakdown of starch into sugars, which would cause the fermentation, which would make the sake. So it is actually a strong beer, not a wine. A wine is a fruit-based drink, usually grape, obviously. What other kinds of particularly Japanese things can you do to food, make it Japanese?
You can put it in tempura.
Yeah.
Tempura. Funny you should say that, because tempura was actually introduced to Japan. And I would give you 10 points if you can tell me which nation taught the Japanese to batter things, which is essentially what
Scottish.
You'd think, wouldn't you? You would think.
Surely there's a ginger-haired man somewhere in one of those medieval scrolls.
You
just
want to
going,
deep fry that?
yeah.
That'd be magic, it really would.
We got any eggs?
Oddly enough, not. No, it was the Portuguese. The Portuguese. They also gave Vindaloo. The name Vindaloo is originally from a Portuguese origin, from Goa. Yep. And
I thought that was a French...
Vandaloo, toilet water.
Goa, as you know. But there you go. Anyway, so lots of interesting things about Japanese food. Now, what do people in Java use for a quick pick-me-up?
Now,
Well,
That's a happy-looking man there.
Not going to say.
go on.
No.
okay, come on, in for a penny. Go on. What was it?
You are so canny.
Coffee.
Coffee does not pick you up. You may think it does. If you drink coffee regularly, you get withdrawal symptoms, and all coffee does is put you back on the same level that a non-coffee drinker is on. It doesn't speed your reflexes, doesn't help you concentrate, doesn't do anything. It can cause anxiety.
Yeah.
That's the worst of it.
shocker. I
It's a
don't
kind
know
of
it.
wired anxiety, but what it isn't is a pick-me-up or an energizer.
Stimulus, in that
It's
way.
not a stimulant in that sense. And in fact, what most scientists recommend is you either drink coffee regularly, in which case you satisfy your body's need and withdrawal symptoms, or you don't drink it at all. The problem most people who have
They're not getting on,
with
are
coffee is when they suddenly go on a bit of a coffee jag. They go to a country that does very good coffee, so they have a lot of ristretto or whatever in Italy, and then they come back to it and then don't have any, and then they have one again, and that's what screws you up. Anyway, yes, my dear.
Cocaine.
I think you probably know that in Indonesia, the price for drug trafficking or being found
Is quite
is
tricky.
essentially death. There is a strange habit of doing something which is supposed to pick you up, supposed to cure you. What happened was somebody tried to commit suicide because they had an illness. So they laid themselves down in a particular place in order to try and end their own lives.
What,
Railway
like
line.
A railway line is the right answer. And they suddenly found that their illness went away. And this caused a rash of Javanese people lying on
on the
railway
railway
lines.
lines? How irritating.
Yes, like so. Very irritating. The joke is that the power comes from the overhead lines. There is no electricity in the rails
I
at all.
don't know that.
I've never seen anyone look more serious than the woman in the middle.
No,
That's fantastic.
So presumably the pick-me-up part depends how fast the train's going.
Whenever I see women like that, I always want to have a moustache and twirl it. That's it.
like a proper melodramatic
Yeah,
villain.
just with a cape. And just,
curl your moustache. And we know the music that goes with it, don't
Yeah.
we? There's that,
You're-
And
That's the same as the washing up.
yes, it is, yes. Multitasking.
There is no
I could be washing up, I also...
Washing up whilst tying his wife to the
And now
railway.
Tom Bailey on the very liquid.
Did it all tricky one, cheese grater, tricky one. Cheese graters, they're tricky.
They are.
What? No.
No, your fingers. You use
No,
a
I
brush.
take them to the car wash, hold them out the windows. Let their brushes take the strain.
Anyway, there's another thing they do in Java, which they do in other parts of the world, dangerous sport involving trains. Do you know what that
Chicken, playing chicken, running
Not
in front
quite
of
playing
Running
chicken.
on the roof.
Running on the roof. Roof surfing, as it's known. There you can see.
That's not so much running as having a picnic, really.
There are so many of them. What they started to do was suspending, just at human head height, grapefruit-sized concrete balls, so that people would just bang, bang like that. So, in order to stop them, they would also...
Start with a grapefruit. Then say, you know...
No, they're tough in Java, believe me. They are tough.
They are, but not that bright.
I'm having a senior moment. The famous volcano near Java, the game...
Krakatoa.
Krakatoa. What's the name of the movie? Krakatoa.
Krakatoa.
East of Java.
East of Java, yes.
Java.
And oddly enough, it's actually west of Java.
Oh, west of Java, yes.
It is an odd thing, but it was one of the first big cinerama kind of movies called Krakatoa east of Java. And it was just a bizarre lie, because it's Krakatoa west of Java. So some producer must have thought, I don't like the sound of west.
It's not going to sell. It's not
No,
going to
it's not
sell.
gonna
What can we do? We can take it
Krakatoa,
north,
east
south,
of Java.
east. It's going to be fantastic.
So within 10 years, tell me when this great, huge explosion.
1883.
1883?
1882.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, viewers at home, brace yourselves.
Oh, hello.
The explosion, the great, enormous, gigantic eruption of Krakatoa, was in 1883.
I think I saw a documentary about it.
May I just say, WTF?
There was a documentary about it on the BBC and they reenacted it.
Well remembered, is it? I mean, it's not an easily... I mean, not
normally
particularly...
remember anything.
It was the loudest sound, apparently, that has ever existed, or at least as far as we know, certainly within human reckoning.
So 4 atomic bombs. It's sort of...
Yeah.
roughly
No, it was 13 times greater than the Hiroshima bomb.
Wow.
It was 5 cubic miles of rock was spewed into the air. And it was heard 3,000 miles away. You could actually hear it 3,000 miles away. And it... Yes.
It sounded like in Australia.
it reverberated around the world, the ripples of it, 7 times. It was an most extraordinary...
Winter for years, wasn't it?
No, the winter for years was actually another. That was an 1815 volcano, and it was known as the Winter of 1815. And you might know, as I can tell those who don't know, that Bill Bailey is a great friend of Indonesia, lives there, works there, plays gamelans, does the whole thing. So you might...
gamelan.
You might know this mountain.
It might have been Tambora.
It was Mount Tambora. Well done.
bravo.
There we go. Yeah. It was called the Year Without a Summer in 1815, and in fact, about 100,000 people died of disease and famine, whereas the explosion of Krakatoa killed 36,000 people because it was an eruption.
And wasn't Krakatoa was like the first global event that sort of was the news of which spread around the world.
We can see behind us Harper's Weekly. It was a media event for the first time. The island and volcano of Krakatoa, Strait of Sunda, submerged during the late eruption.
Yes.
When eventually a human party of people arrived at the site of what was once a gigantic volcano that had just exploded, they found, and I'm including both vegetable and animal matter here, 1 living creature, and I will give you 10 points if you can tell me the species.
Was it a spider that they
Yes!
found? It was a spider.
Absolutely marvellous. Everybody's on cracking form here. You really are doing superbly well.
Was the spider going, oh, it's hot?
It was indeed. It was using 2 legs at a time. Anyway.
Like this.
So it was doing the washing up.
Yes, it was. It's the Jerusalem washing up spider. I don't know if you knew that.
Anyway, moving on. So, what was the most hurtful thing Rambo's boyfriend did to him?
Right.
that him?
I've seen this film. It's a bootleg. It's a very different film. Rambo's boyfriend.
Well, I'm being very naughty. Of course, the
Yeah.
picture is being very naughty. When I say Rambo, I really mean Rambo.
Rambo.
So when I say Rambo, who do I mean?
You mean, of course, him.
Who is he?
He looks off his head on.
Somebody French.
Arthur
Arthur
Rambo.
Arthur Rambo, who was...
No, he was a great writer.
poet.
He was a poet. He was a great
yes.
poet. But he was very rare in as much as we're used to Beethoven and Mozart and other musicians being extraordinarily prodigious at an early age. It's very rare for a poet. The greatest work that Rimbaud wrote, and he was a great poet, was between the ages of 17 and 21. He was extraordinarily beautiful. According to a school friend, he had eyes of pale blue irradiated with dark blue, the loveliest eyes I've ever seen. He was a brilliant student. He won a regional poetry competition in spite of sleeping through the first 3 hours of the exam. At 16, he ran away from home with no money. And then between the ages of 17 and 21, just 4 years, he had this extraordinary flowering as a poet. But in doing so, he shared his life with someone. He had a passionate, tumultuous affair with... ...
Katie Price.
His dates were 1854 to 1891. So he died in 36, 37.
And he was of a
A
homosexual
child
persuasion.
prodigy, he was gay.
Oh, well.
I don't know anything about those
And
people.
in fact, there is a plaque, a blue plaque to him in London, where he shared a shortish time with his lover, who was also a poet, a famous poet.
Oh. Gérard de Nerval.
No, one of them. Gérard de Nerval was a fascinating man.
He was.
Very much enjoyed
As
the
you
way
know.
you said that.
Je suis le veuf. L'un compte.
And he also
Le ténébreux.
famously had a pet lobster, Gérard de Nerval.
He did, indeed.
Who we used to take for walks on a lead.
Vite, vite, monsieur! Monsieur Clicky!
Stay with it, stay with it, stay with it.
Allons-y!
Stay with it, because it's good. Because
Non! J'ai fatigué! Non! Allez-y!
Mangez quelque chose.
L'eau! S'il vous plaît, l'eau!
Non. Non, pas de l'eau. Non, de l'artichoke de Jérusalem.
Oh, bon.
I never thought I'd see the day when Bill Bailey force-fed Gérard de Nerval's lobster with Jerusalem artichoke. The day came. Anyway, let's just return to this other poet who was the lover of the young Verlaine. Oh, sorry, the young...
Verlaine.
Now, there on the left is Verlaine, the one who looks slightly like John Malkovich. In the middle is the boy wonder, Rambo, and on the right is, I can't remember his name.
That's Robert De Niro.
It is Robert De Niro, yes, yeah.
It is a bit, isn't it, on the right? It's Robert De Niro.
It's like a 19th century ad for hairdressers.
Yeah.
All the different styles.
Is that's the same person in that picture
It
as
is,
it was in
yeah.
the one before?
It is.
Jeez, earbrushing.
I know. But they went to live in Camden for a short while, and there is a blue plaque in Camden, that says Arthur Rimbaud and Paul Verlaine, poets and lovers, lived here. It's the first blue plaque ever to celebrate a gay couple, which is rather sweet. Anyway, that's the story of these two. It so happens that Paul Verlaine wrote a poem of extraordinary international importance, whose opening lines are...
And did
No, I'll tell you what they are. Les sangles longues des violons de l'automne blessent mon cœur de monotone longueur.
I didn't realise you wanted it in French.
No, it seriously is internationally important, that poem. How could that be that those first lines changed history?
It's the international.
I will do it in a voice that might give you a hint.
Okay.
Les sangles longues des violons de l'automne. Yes.
It's the start of the Eurovision Song Contest.
That, as we know, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony begins
Damn it.
that. No, it was a code.
Code to the resistance.
Yes! It was a code to the resistance that the D-Day landings were beginning and that the resistance should begin their sabotage. So
they went,
that was the signal. So it was rather wonderful. So to French hearts beat a little quicker when they hear those four words. It's a rather...
camp person decided that was the code they were going to use.
It's a very famous poem, and it would be like saying, shall I compare thee to a summer's day, or whatever. Anyway, we thought you'd like to know about it, but why...
Quite interesting.
The question was, how did the lover hurt Rambo?
Shut his fingers in the door.
Yeah.
Worse than that, he had a tumultuous, passionate, jealous rage, and he shot him in the wrist.
In the wrist?
Yes.
Whilst he was masturbating.
I'm going to move on, because
move on.
this baby.
It's for the best.
Anyway,
I am so out of my comfort zone.
it's all good information that is well worth knowing. Arthur Rimbaud was shot in the arm by Paul Verlaine. Now, on to one of the delicacies of Jamaican cuisine. I think we all know how to make cock soup, but how would you make mannish water?
Sorry, I don't know how to make cock soup.
soup.
I don't know. Really?
Cockaliki. Chicken
Oh,
soup.
right. Oh, OK.
Leaky.
Cockaliki.
It's chicken soup.
Oh, I see. Is that what it is?
A cock is a chicken.
It's a chicken, yeah, it's a chicken.
What can you have been
I
thinking?
don't know. I thought it was some terrible euphemism.
What, a euphemism for pheasant?
I don't... Yes, that's That's it, pheasant.
Well, cock soup is chicken soup. Cock-a-leaky.
Cock-a-leaky soup.
Yeah. You've had cock-a-leaky in Scotland.
I've had coffee.
Yeah, yes, you've had a leaky cock. No, such and because. No, listen, now, mannish water.
So, Frankie Howard was in the room. No, wait.
No,
Don't.
stop. No, shush. No, don't. No.
Mrs. No.
Big belly laughs of all the men with big bellies, and we'll have little titters from all... No. All right. Don't you remember that one?
Oh.
Stop it. Mannish water. Come on, we're in Jamaica. Mannish water.
Is it
yeah.
some kind of a soupage of some kind? Is it?
Yes,
It's a soupage.
It's
Water.
Jamaican. Is the
Jamaican soupage.
Yeah.
Right, so what is it? Jamaican food? Is that what you're looking for? So the most famous...
Plantains.
It's mannish, though. The point is that they want to be male, so
Yes.
they're going to eat male animals.
Oh, OK, so it's...
And what food is common in...
Rice and peas.
Yes?
Rice and peas, flying fish.
Anything else?
And
goat.
Goat.
Goats.
Details of goat.
That's it. So all the male parts of a goat, and a male goat is the important thing, makes mannish water. It's also called goat's head soup. Does the phrase goat's head soup mean anything to you?
Yes, I'm not hungry, is what it means.
It's an album, isn't it?
Thank you.
Goat's Head Soup by... What's his name?
Not his name, their name.
Oh.
The greatest rock and roll band in the world, they call themselves.
The Claimers.
And you can walk another 100 miles.
I love the Proclaimers.
No, I'm very fond of the Proclaimers, but the
Rolling Stones. Rolling Stones.
in 1973 produced an album called Goat's Head Soup.
Yes.
Because they recorded the album on Jamaica. And do you know why they recorded the album on Jamaica?
So they were mad for the soup.
They went...
Nope. Because it was about the only bloody country on earth where they weren't banned from. It was around the time of a lot of the drugs and all the rest of it. And so they were allowed in Jamaica, and they made an album called Goat's Head Soup, which is another word for mannish water. And its ingredients, should you wish to make it, are goat's head, feet and intestines served with bananas and spices. It's supposed to be an aphrodisiac. It's supposed to man you up. That's the point. Hence, mannish soup. There's also cow cod soup made of bull's penis, chili peppers and bananas cooked in white rum, which sounds rather nice.
That is nice.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
I'll just pop up to Lidl in the morning.
Yeah. Anyway, that's mannish water for you. But where are fathers often barely older than their sons? Barely? And when I say barely older, they can be only a day older than their son.
In the insect world.
It's got to be...
No, I'm talking about humans.
Humans?
Yeah. It sounds impossible.
Adoptions.
Adoptions. And there is a country in which 98% of all adoptions are of adults, not of children. In which country?
Japan.
And it begins with J, and it is Japan. And in Japan, it is very traditional to adopt an adult young man, aged between 25 and 30 is roughly the average.
So have you got to find one without parents, presumably? You've got to find one
No,
that's Scottish, but
oddly enough, you, as it were, adopt them from their own real parents. Because you're rich and successful.
It's called stealing.
The reason... It sort of is.
It's the transfer system.
It's a transfer.
It
is basically an open market transfer system.
Yeah, it's like the Premier League.
Yeah, and it is for the same reason. It's business. If your own son is a bit of a clod, and I'm afraid it is a male business, this, and you run a business, and you want it to stay a family business, what you tend to do is adopt a young man who is very bright, and you'll probably marry him to your daughter. There is a saying, you can't choose your son, but you can choose your son-in-law.
You can adopt somebody, make them your son, and then marry them to your
Yes,
daughter?
I know.
Isn't there something...
I know it's weird, that is the Japanese way.
Wow. That would take off in Norfolk.
So, for example, the current chairman of Suzuki, one of the largest corporations in Japan, is the fourth adopted son to have run the company. So he is a Suzuki. That's to say his father was someone who was adopted by someone who was adopted by someone who was adopted by a Suzuki. And they're not blood related, but they've become the adopted child. But there you are. So only 2% of adoptees in Japan are infants. Right. Only 2. The rest, 98%, are males.
All males.
All males. So and they're there for that reason, to continue
the line.
That's ongoing.
It's ongoing to this day, yes, absolutely. Now, here are 2 towns behind me. They both begin with J. Why are they blue?
Oh, now I know this.
Yes.
But, well, one of them.
Go on then.
I've got a Smurf collection. I've had it many years. When I was younger, I used to collect Smurfs. It was my hobby. I've got a Smurf village I created when I was younger. It's still there. Reminds me of the bad times. and the good times.
Right.
Now, and if this is wrong, I'm going to look like a total twat.
Yeah.
When
The
they
thing
did
is, you're
the-
going to look like a twat even if you're right.
Yeah.
Carry on, yeah. because knowing this is so deeply sad. Yeah, carry on.
So I love Smurfs and everything
Yeah.
about Smurfs and Smurfette and everything else.
Yeah.
When they did the premiere of the Smurf film,
Yes.
they painted a town somewhere, I think it was Spain, near Marbella or something like that, blue for the premiere of the film. And then afterwards they said, we'll paint it back. And the residents had had such a lot of tourism, and they dubbed the mayor Papa Smurf, which he was delighted about. But they were having a referendum to see if they wanted to keep their town blue because they thought it was quite cool. And I think, because that's Smurf, because it was Smurf Town, which sounds amazing, because I love the Smurfs.
You
I like it. It's that one on the right.
100% correct.
Come on!
Oh, wow. The only thing that would add 20 points was if you knew the name.
20 points.
The only... Will not destroy the set. Yes, you've broken it. Just tell me
Is
the
it
name of the town.
Juarez. Was it Juarez?
No, that's in Mexico. We're talking about Spain.
Jojoba.
Jerez.
No,
Jerez.
that's...
Jamin.
No.
Juan.
It begins with ch. I'll give you that.
Ipswich.
Jerusalem.
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 Heidi.
No,
Heidi.
it's called Cusca.
Next thing I was going to say.
J-U-Z-C-A-R. Cusca.
What's
With an
the
accent on
other
the
town?
U.
What's the other town? Jaipur.
Yes. Well
point.
done. No,
Surely
no,
a point.
no. Whoa.
Jodhpur.
I misheard you.
It's Jodhpur.
Jodhpur is the answer.
I still said it before Sandy. I
You
still
did.
said Jodhpur
You said
before
the wrong
Sandy.
thing.
No, I said Jodhpur. I still
Now
said
give me the
Jodhpur.
point.
You're quite right. It's Jodhpur. So we can go back to a picture of Jodhpur. Why is Jodhpur blue?
It's to do with the caste system. It's
Yes.
to do with indigo. Indigo being the colour of the Brahmin.
The Brahmin. It's a Brahmin, which
it was
is the
to
highest
distinguish their
caste.
houses, and then everybody else thought it was a good idea.
There's also a pink city. Can you name a pink city?
That was the one.
Jaipur.
Yes! There you go. Well, there it is. It was built in pink stone and it was indeed painted pink for a very particular reason. I wonder if you can...
Prince Albert, wasn't it?
Yes, Prince Albert Edward, who later became Edward VII.
He was coming to visit, and they
He
thought,
he visited
let's
in the
paint it pink.
In the 1870s, painted pink in his honour. Anyway, there we go. Jodhpur and Khuskar are both painted blue, one by tradition, the other for a Smurfs film. Now, what would you keep in a 14-ton jar with no lid?
Biscuits.
Yeah.
Biscuits. A lot of biscuits.
Lots of biscuits, that's what
14-ton
I
jar.
would-
14-ton jar is quite... I have difficulty imagining what that would be. How big
Vast.
that is. It's vast.
14-ton is heavy, but, I mean, it's only...
It's a big thing.
It's only 6 or 7 lorries. I mean, what, 6 lorries? Well, 4 lorries. Depends how big the lorry is.
Yes.
But I mean, you know, you get a
Jam.
2-ton truck.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about a 14 one, it's not a jam jar, no. It's a jar.
Tadpoles.
They're known as a jar to archaeologists, if that's any use to you.
Yes.
I did archaeology at university,
Evening
and there's
school.
quite a lot of things that we don't know what they're for.
Yes,
and
and
I
this is
think
an
this is one of
example.
those. I think
And
this-
might you be able to place it on the
I
map?
think it's in Laos.
You are damn well spot on. I'm so impressed with you lot today. Although you've been occasionally just a little bit facetious, you've also come up with some stonkingly correct answers.
These,
and
what
these
they
are...
now think is that nobody knows what they were for, and Marco Polo described them, and we now think they're for making goat's head soup.
You're absolutely right, though. They're on the plains of Laos, and they're made of granite, and they are human-made. No one knows how they made them. Granite is not an easy stone to work with. I mean, you make a nice kitchen surface for it. It's lovely for slicing. Slicing. Yeah.
Slicing. Writing.
Writing. Exactly.
Buying things on
that's
eBay.
right. Anyway, there are 90 sites, each containing up to 400 of these jars. And as you rightly say, we don't really know what they're for. The assumption is dead bodies were put in there, allowed to decompose, were then taken out and cremated, and it was something to do with the journey of the dead.
Yeah, but you always have to allow for the soul of even very early people, and maybe It's one of those things where they thought if I make a very big container, the gods will fill it for me with
Yes,
bounty. Do you know what I mean? We must
absolutely.
always allow for the dream element.
exactly.
in them.
Absolutely right. There is often a functional fallacy. There is always an assumption that things are done for a very specific practical reason, which isn't always true. The soul is a
Well,
lot
it's
of
like the
part of it.
cargo cults in Papua New Guinea who built whole runways. The missionaries came and they had all this stuff, and the indigenous people say, what is it? They said, it's cargo. And they said, where does it come from? It comes from Sydney, meaning Australia. And they developed a god called Sydney. And they made whole runways in the jungle, waiting for Sydney to bring them cargo. So you might find a runway and think, what landed here? The answer is nothing landed here, except your dashed dreams.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
beautifully put.
perhaps that's the case with the
I think
jars
that's
at the moment.
beautifully put. And the fact is, the most honest archaeologists will say they don't know, A, how they were made, or B, exactly what they were for. Your guess is as good as mine, and yours seems to me to be a very rational and realistic one.
They also may be a corresponding set of stolen lids.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Cambodia.
Anyway, do you know the capital of Alaska?
Yes, you just said it.
Exactly, thank you. Very good. Juneau is the capital of Alaska. Juneau. Juneau. But there's something unique about it.
It rains all the bloody time, I know that.
Well, it's not accessible by road. You can only get there by air or water. There is no road to Juneau.
Sarah Palin can get there by walking on the water.
And can you tell me the biggest joke ever to come out of Alaska?
Sarah Palin, who
We're not forfeiting you that. It was so obvious.
Oh,
that we
Isn't
weren't
she
even
lovely?
going to forfeit it.
if I had forfeited, I would have repudiated.
We would have repudiated. Anyway, the point is, there is actually a famous practical joke, an April Fool's joke that came out of Alaska. It took a lot of preparation and it was rather extraordinary. We'll show you a photograph that might give you a hint. I mean, it's not really going to be easy, but what's in the background now?
This is a volcano-based practical
Yes.
joke, and it's one that I read about it, and it very much impressed me because if you do a practical joke, which is cling film over the toilet, something simple.
Yeah.
The person who did this practical joke, it's a good one. It doesn't work for women necessarily because we tend to notice when we sit down that there's some. But for men, I tell you, it's a hoot. There was a volcano. And a gentleman, I can't remember his name, I apologise, decided to try and make it seem as if it was erupting, so took loads of tyres and set fire to it, and then everyone came out of their houses and went, the volcano's erupting. Because it was
absolutely
so good.
right. He waited 3 years till there was a clear April the 1st. He took kerosene and smoke bombs and tyres and he dropped them down the crater and set fire to it. But in 50-foot letters, he did say, April Fool, and he warned the federal authority. He called them up, but he forgot to call the Coast Guard, who did panic a bit. But it was, fortunately, all taken in the right spirit. And his name is Porky Bickar.
Porky.
Porky, that was his nickname. Porky. He was American, so he was called Porky. Porky Bickar. And that is, aside from Sarah Palin, the greatest joke ever to come out of Alaska.
It is a good one.
I have to say, I am
one.
very impressed again with your knowledge. And as it happens, that's the end of tonight's question. So let's see how our journey has panned out. Well, it's astonishing. Her first ever appearance on Plus 15, a clear winner, Susan Calman. And only 4 inches behind on 11, Sandy Toxford. Impressively, the digitally endowed, still in the black, +4, Bill Bailey. Well, perhaps the best we can say is, bless him, he did try. -11, Alan Davies. That's all from Sandy, Susan, Bill, Alan and me. Thank you, good night, and be wonderful to each other. Bye-bye.
More quizzing here on BBC HD as Breakaway continues on Monday at 4:30. Next tonight, though, comedy coming up from the thick of it.